So I did my my presentation on the Auschwitz concentration camp, which I made my sophomore year with Peter. There we go. Okay. So the Auschwitz concentration camp was located in Poland. There were a few different locations for the Auschwitz concentration camp. There were just that main one, but then they also made a few other ones besides that just one. Auschwitz concentration camp was the oldest and the first concentration camp created by the Nazis. So the Nazis tried to take power over Germany, and they acted in violence against Jews. And now you can actually go and tour the concentration camps. In the Auschwitz concentration camp, So the Holocaust, that's the whole Auschwitz concentration camp. That's why it was created, I guess. So the Holocaust was during World War II. Since 1945, the whole world practically changed. It was a mass murder of over 6 million European Jews. Also some gypsies and homosexuals, because they didn't fit Adolf Hitler's image of what he wanted in his life. He wanted specifically blonde people with blue eyes, and he despised Jews and anybody like them. They were an alien threat to Adolf Hitler and the German Nazis that were with him. His final solution was the Holocaust, and he just decided to do a mass killing and making concentration camps where people were forced to be slaves and work under his command. So they were brought to the camps by train. They would transport Jews to different countries, specifically the Auschwitz concentration camp, because that was the biggest one. Yeah, mostly the people came from Hungary, Poland, France, the Netherlands, Greece, and a bunch of other places. I know of one, obviously, Anne Frank and her family. They hid in an attic for years. They were never caught, and they were I shouldn't say finally, they were caught by the Nazis on accident. I'm not exactly sure what year, but they were all split up, and the only one that survived was the father, Frank. So they were crammed in these trains like sardines. I don't mean to use sardines, but it's kind of a way to put into perspective. So they all got an identification number on their wrist. It was either on their wrist or on their chest. It kind of just depended on where the Nazis wanted to put it, I guess. So they were all issued a serial number. And if some of the prisoners that did not receive tattoos would get sent directly to the gas chambers. It was kind of up in the air type of thing. They would say, oh yeah, you guys get to go to the identification number center type of thing, or you get to go to the gas chambers. Did not matter who you were, did not matter what you looked like. It just depended on what they wanted to do, I guess. And yeah. So there were multiple jobs at the concentration camp. So they're forced into forced labor, and it was humiliating, and it depended on, I guess, who was supervising your station at that point, but sometimes they would make you strip. They would dress you in horrible clothes. They would make you take clothes off of dead people, and who knows, it could have been a family member of theirs. So there were big piles of shoes and briefcases and glasses and rings and clothes, and they would just have to strip them and put them into piles, or they were forced to make little holes and move boulders. And not just saying that there were just men doing this, but there were also children, young as 6, even younger sometimes, and women, and they would deliberately do this so that they would either get injured or get an infection or get an illness, and it would lead into death. That's ultimately what they wanted to do. They just wanted to kill them off. So the sleeping arrangements, they were either forced to sleep on the floor, they were either forced to sleep on a mattress that wasn't even a mattress, it was just filled with piles of hay. It wasn't soft, obviously, they wanted them to suffer. They would end up piling the mattresses in the corner of the room because the rooms were so overcrowded with the prisoners. They would either sleep on their sides or in rows. There was never a moment where you weren't right next to each other during your sleeping, during sleep. So the bunks were meant for 3 people, but they put way more people than that, dozens on top of dozens. Sometimes you would either be sleeping right next to each other, or they would be sleeping on top of you. You never know. And they would purposely make it hot in there so they would suffer. So there was over 1.1 million deaths at that concentration camp. There were obviously multiple concentration camps because they couldn't just fit everybody into one, but at this specific one there was over 1.1 million. These are just some random numbers that I picked up a few years ago. But yeah, if you didn't die in the gas chambers when you were forced into there, they would strip you and they would put you in, they would tell you you're getting a shower, they would tell you you're getting clean, but then they would lock the door and gas you. And yeah, so the biggest one where I think that people died was definitely the march. So in mid-January 1945, the Auschwitz concentration camp decided to have a march, and it was approximately 30 miles from just one point to the other. I'm not exactly sure what the exact miles were for them walking, but the majority of them died just from either starvation, dehydration, lack of motivation. I feel like most of them just ended up dying because they didn't want to go through the pain anymore. At one point, you just have to think about it. There's no point of living if you're just going to be forced into this, and they didn't know when it was going to end. They had no idea when the Nazis were going to get taken over and they were going to get helped. So they really had no idea. And then this is my works cited. So I believe that the impact that this event had on society was definitely hard. A lot of people took this to heart, which, I mean, how couldn't you? This is probably one of the biggest events in history. So many people were maliciously murdered. They were slaves to these people for really no reason at all, just because they didn't fit the perspective that they had on life that Adolf Hitler wanted. He just decided to take control and force them to do stuff that they didn't want to do. And I feel like he shouldn't have done that. Yeah. We're still talking about this event today because it had such a big impact on history. So, like I said, so many people died, and there's so many memorials for all these Holocaust. Even there's a handful. There was actually a lot of Holocaust survivors that pushed through and fought their way, and finally they got help, but there's still is so much more that got killed. And the people that survived, they're true heroes. If I remember correctly, there's a Holocaust survivor memorial in New York. Yeah. So society can learn from this event to try to avoid it. I really don't know exactly how to explain that. It's just be accepting of others and don't push them down just because they don't have the same views as you, or they don't fit what your description on life is, or what you were raised to know and learn and have a certain image on humans. Just be accepting of everybody. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.